You're listening to the Nutmegged Arena by the Nutmeg Assist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this bonus episode of the TNA podcast brought to you by the Nutmeg Assist. Myself, Rithwik, the host for the show, and I'm joined by my co-host Chris, as usual. Welcome, mate.
Thank you very much, Rithwik. Thank you.
Yeah, and what we'll be discussing today is the transfers related to the Merseyside, the two Merseyside giants, Liverpool and Liverpool B, or Liverpool search like B Shankly said. I'm just joking around. So we'll be discussing Liverpool and Everton's transfer window so far. So we'll directly head on to the podcast or the talk now. And our patron Dieter has asked a general consensus or a general view, Chris, on what you think of both the clubs' transfer windows.
Well, I'll start with Everton's. Rithwik, I'll start with Everton's, which I think it's been excellent, really. A lot better than what I expected it to be. If I'm being brutally honest, I didn't see all three players coming in with the type of club that we're getting. We're a bit of a journalist's paradise, really, because we get linked with every single player that becomes available throughout the summer. Obviously, we were heavily linked with Allan. I thought maybe that was partially down to Ancelotti's previous links. We were always linked with Rodriguez for the same reason, and we've been linked with Doucoure for the last 2 seasons now. So to actually get all three in has been fantastic business, in my opinion, especially for the cost that they've got them in at now that Rodriguez's transfer has been confirmed as essentially a free transfer, and he just paid the remainder of his contract off. I think it's been fantastic. All three players improved the first 11, which is it's quite rare of a team on our level to get 3 players in one transfer window that come in and prove the first 11. Normally players might get 4 or 5 players where 1 or 2 might come straight in and the rest are just essentially squad players, which we've done in the past ourselves. That's why I'm referring to that, and that's how I know it happens. But all 3 players come in and take us up 2 levels straight away, and I think you've seen that in the performances already, even though it's early doors, and I'm not taking nothing for granted for the rest of the season, but the level that we're playing at, and just them 3 as individuals, just their general ability as individuals, you can see that they've took us up a level, and the fact that what they've done for the rest of the players around them, they've also took them players up a level as well. The Calvert-Lewins of this world specifically. So as an overall transfer window, it's been the best for a long time. Probably since I'd probably say the best in terms of personnel since maybe Roberto Martinez's first transfer window when he got Lukaku in and Gareth Barry, but they were both on loan as well. So it's been the best in a long time. And plus we can't forget about Nkunku as well, the young left back that we've got, who has made a massive impression on many Evertonians, just for, even if it's just on his appearances in the Carabao Cup. It's been fantastic, and I know it's been against Salford and Fleetwood, but this kid is a first team player. He's going to play a lot for the first team this year, and it's going to be great to have someone of his quality to bring in when Digne needs a rest or if he was to get injured, which he has done in previous seasons, and we've missed that. We've missed that sort of dynamism when Digne gets injured, and that attacking threat down the left-hand side. And Nkunku, for me, it doesn't look like there's any. I haven't seen a weakness to his game yet, but obviously that's only based on the 2 games that I've seen him on. Obviously, he will come up against better opposition throughout the season, so only time will tell for that. But he looks like a really, really promising player. So as a window, this is the happiest I've been as an Everton fan for a long time. Just purely based on transfer window activity. Yeah.
So out of 10, if you had to rate this window so far, how much would you actually rate out of 10? 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Oh, that's bold. That's really bold.
10 out of 10 as a again, obviously we'll probably have banter in a minute about who's won the transfer window, and I that's a term that I generally hate. 1, because it's never us, and 2, just because you can never tell, because it depends on how they play throughout the season. But just in terms of bringing in players for what we need. Now, I was a bit worried when we were getting linked with Allan Not because of him as a player, but because Ancelotti seemed intent on. It didn't look like Ancelotti was going to move from his 4-4-2 that he used last season. So I was thinking, well, if he brings Allan in and he doesn't bring anyone alongside him, then Allan doesn't give us anything that we need. But he's brought Allan in, which we needed his defensive stability and his ability to intercept and close play down. But then he's also brought Doucoure in as well. That gives us a little bit more of an option going forward and defensively. So now that makes Gomez better because it takes a bit of the responsibility away from him that he had last season, which he weren't good at.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And then they've added the creativity in Rodriguez. Also, from a tactical point of view, it makes us a little bit, it gives us variation now, because as you've seen from the first 2 games, we've been playing with 4-3-3. We can go back to the 4-4-2. Allan and Doucoure would, as a 2 in the central midfield, would still be strong enough, a lot stronger than the 4-4-2 we were playing last year with Sigurdsson and Gomez, or Gomez and Tom Davis, or Sigurdsson and Tom Davis, whoever it may be. And they've even got the option, I think, of playing Rodriguez inside once he becomes a bit more adjusted to Premier League life and the league itself and the physicality of the league. Even though that sometimes that can be overplayed, because good players are good players, they can play anywhere, they can play in any league. But once he becomes a bit more adjusted to that, he can play, for me, the way he played at Bayern Munich, which was like a number 8, and he played a lot deeper. So that gives us options now. Everton, we don't have to be rigid to the 4-2-3-1 that we've played, or so fixed on the 4-2-3-1 that we've played over the last 5 years, because we've had to play that formation to cover for some players' ineptability, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and in my opinion, if you had to, look at Everton's transfer window, basically, I mean, we've actually had this discussion before as well. Allan, Doucoure, Rodriguez, James. So Allan, again, we had our own doubts as well. I also shared the same opinion with you. So if you're just bringing in Allan to this Everton team from Napoli, I thought it was Carlo Ancelotti showing some love for his former player. I know he's really good because he's played a lot of times against Liverpool already, and he was brilliant in all those games. So I know how good he is. I watched a bit of Serie A as well, and he's a really, really, really amazing player. But my doubt was, he is 29, and is this another? And with Everton, you never know, because Everton kind of try and buy these names from Barcelona, the rejects from Barcelona. But this time they kind of bought from Italy. They bought players who are really good. Italy, Spain, and even in England. Doucoure is not bad. I would say he's still a decent player who has, I guess, a little bit more to his game to add. He's 27, but again, he's good. I thought that was a smart signing again. But Allan, I had doubts, not on his quality, but if he would actually be the right man for Everton. So that was my doubt. And on James, my doubt again, I again had a doubt on James, not because of his quality, because we all know how good he is on his day, but in his last year, he was actually struggling to get games at Real Madrid. I don't know if it was Zidane not fancying him, or if it was because of his performance, but I was not very much impressed even when he played a few minutes as well in Spain. There were signs of him kind of declining, but watching the first 2 games, what I say is brilliance on the pitch. James, especially with his passing. Even the first game against Tottenham, he had some really amazing moments. West Brom, again, they completely destroyed West Brom, didn't you guys? So I mean, I had my doubt again, but I think the transfer window again probably is, I mean, I'll be a little harsh, but I think it's still 8 out of 10, probably from a general perspective. And 8 is a really, really good rating, honestly speaking, for me.
Yeah. The reason I've gone for a 10 is because, again, like I said before, transfer window, if these players get injured now for the rest of the season, then again, I'm talking from a hypothetical point of view and a scenario-based basis here. If these players were to get injured for the rest of the season, not play another game all year, then the window's quite bad, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm talking. Yeah. So that's the way I approach it. But I'm looking at it purely from what they've done for our team. Again, so you can only judge a transfer window, like you can't really compare Everton's to Liverpool's, for example. And obviously, I'm only comparing those two teams now because they're the teams that we support. Because, like, say, for example, there's probably many Evertonians out there that will go, right, well, Everton's transfer window has been better than Liverpool's. But the fact is, we're at a lower level than Liverpool. So, like, the free play, like, for example, sorry, let me word this correctly. There's probably many Evertonians that are saying Everton's transfer window is better than Liverpool's because we've brought in free players that improve our first team, as where Liverpool have maybe only brought one player in that improves their first team. However, that's because Everton's first team needed a lot more improvement than Liverpool's. So you can't, sometimes in those situations, you can't compare it and who's done the better business. And when I give my Everton's 10 out of 10, this was a transfer window that Everton absolutely, there was no manoeuvre for error. They could not get another transfer window wrong. They had to go out, and whatever signing that they made, not only did they have to come in and improve the first team, they had to get it right. Okay, there's no point in improving the first team and then the player takes 6 months to get used to it. And we can't afford that luxury anymore. And I mean that financially, and I mean that from an actual playing perspective as well. It's a transfer window that we had to get right. And from my perspective, looking at it, every one of those players gives us something that we needed. Creativity, defensive stability, and the actual ability in Doucoure to actually just be... Again, when I see centre midfielders in this day and age, and I don't know if anyone agrees with me on this, I hate the way centre midfielders now are sort of put into what, oh right, he's defensive, he's attacking. What happened to the good old-fashioned box-to-box Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard type of player that could actually offer something defensively and offer something in the attacking third? Do you know what I mean? And I think Doucoure is actually that player. And not only that, from what I've seen in the last 2 games, he's very, very good positionally as well. Everton had a habit last season when I watched us, is that they were never set. Whenever the second ball came, it was the opposition were always there. Yeah. Everton never ever won the second ball, and against Tottenham, we won the second ball all the time, all over the field. And whenever the ball in centre, it seemed to be Doucoure that was second to that ball, and that's because of his awareness around the play, of where to be at the right time. And that's not something, again, that's a skill for a centre midfielder. That's not something that you can coach. That's a natural ability to actually be able to read the game. So
you can call it I mean, I think people more often term it as football intelligence, although it's just intelligence from
you're right there. And that's why that's why I give Everton's 10 out of 10, because they've ticked every box that they needed, and financially as well. I mean, when we spoke and you mentioned there about the Allan deal and about our concerns, I mean, it wasn't about Allan as a footballer. I mean, Allan straight away came into Everton and he's better than anything we've got. But what worried me was the price that they were getting quoted, which was £35 million initially. And we know Napoli's owner, De Laurentiis, is quite strict in terms of the money he gets for his players, and he's quite adamant as well. He won't budge, and I'm sure Man City will know that at the moment with Koulibaly. He's not going to budge if he's got a price in his head, and that's when I was like, oof, I'm a bit worried about that. But obviously we've got him down to, I think we got him for 22 million eventually, so they've done really well in that sense. So and then the finance for James Rodriguez, I mean, again, it was 22 million, or I think the initial price that got quoted was 30 million, then it got down to 22, and then it got down to 14, and now it's a free transfer and we just paid off the remainder of his contract. So again, that's I think that's brilliant business, and I think Marcel Brands deserves credit for that.
Absolutely, I agree with you there, absolutely, mate. And and I mean, 8 in my opinion is actually a very, very good rating. So that's why I give 8 out of 10, because like you said, I still think Everton probably can do better in the sense, because you don't have the depth, I guess, to compete again for someone somewhere like the top 4. With a manager like Carlo Ancelotti, you need more depth. But I think I still think it's a really good window. So yes, 8 out of 10 for me, 10 out of 10 for you, and I think both arguments are very, very fair. So moving on to Liverpool now. When we did the Premier League season review, I said Liverpool would finish second, and I don't want to jinx it, but I'll still keep it that way. for now. But honestly speaking, I'm actually more optimistic than I was at that point of time, because we actually needed a cover for a left back. We actually needed a centre back, fourth choice centre back or a third choice centre back, whichever was better. And a midfielder, I don't really think it was like very a priority, but again, a change obviously would have been good. And a left side attacker again, Sadio Mane backup was very much necessary. We got Costa Simikas from Olympiacos, the left back, the Greek left back, who's a very good backup. I think he'll be a very good backup to Robertson. He might even push Robertson at times, although he'll get a very few games, only a few games. You look at the right back, I think Nico Williams is going to start now that since Kiana Hover has left for Wolves. I think Nico Williams might might be the second choice right back. Competing with Trent Alexander-Arnold. James Milner is again there. He's going to be played in almost all areas of the pitch, apart from the goalkeeper one part. Yeah, so that's also, I think, covered. Centre back, I think, is a priority still, and I think unless we make or pull that off, if we pull that deal off for a centre back, I would actually give Liverpool a 10 out of 10 window, because they've done perfectly well so far. Thiago is a world-class signing, and I think he's the first world-class player to have signed for Liverpool since I started watching football, obviously.
When you say that, do you mean he signed as he's already world-class?
Yeah, that's a meaning.
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely at least top 3 or top 5 midfielders in the world. I think we've not signed a player who's top 3 or top 5 in the world when we signed them, actually, not after we signed them. So I don't think we've ever signed that kind of a player. So I think that's a world-class scope. So and we saw against Chelsea as well, although Chelsea were down by one man, but we already saw the quality that he would bring.
Yeah, and especially when he gave away the penalty.
It was basically 6D chess, because he obviously had to, uplift Alisson's mentality. Alisson saved the penalty. It was basically 6D chess from Thiago there.
Yeah. You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah. and going on to attack as well, Diogo Jota. I thought this whole summer we were linked with Ismail Assar, the Senegalese Watford winger or striker. We're still linked with him as well. I think there's serious interest there, but the price that was quoted, 40 million by Watford, I always thought that was a little too much. And since it's an overpaying window or overpaying transfer time, I thought, okay, we might pay. But signing Diogo Jota out of nowhere was a surprise for me, and I'm someone who likes Diogo Jota because I've seen him play for Wolves a lot. I did some analysis as well. Yes, the impact or the statistic where he lacked is, I think, when he shoots, the finishing. So it's probably almost as worse as Firmino was last season, and Firmino was probably among the worst converter, you could say, or the worst finisher in the Premier League. So Jota was also among that group, but he creates a lot of chances. He wins a lot of penalties. He's a pressing machine like Pep Linders has mentioned.
You'll fit in at Liverpool then if he wins a lot of penalties.
Definitely, I think this season again VAR is gonna be helping us a lot.
Wouldn't surprise me. That's what on Sunday when I seen Thiago make the tackle, I didn't know whether I was more shocked at the fact that it was Thiago making a tackle, the fact that VAR didn't overrule it and give you a free kick. And just for any Liverpool fans that listen, I am only joking. Obviously. I don't want to be I don't be switching off thinking that I actually think that. This whole Liverpool theory is amazing and funny at the same time. So I think it's again, I would again give it just an 8 out of 10 window, because I think unless we don't sign a centre back,
I don't think we are complete as a team. I think centre back is still the priority because we saw before the Chelsea game. Joel Matip was injured again. I think he's out for a month. Joe Gomez also was out with some small ankle sprain, I guess, if I'm not wrong. So these two centre backs, the second and third choice centre backs, they are good. They are really good on their best day. But these two are very, very, very unreliable when it comes to injuries, and their injury record speaks for itself as well. And this is why I think unless Liverpool sign a fourth choice centre back, it's going to be really hard. I know Fabinho filled up, did a great job. He's filled there again. In the Champions League before against Robert Lewandowski and done a great job. But I don't know if it makes more sense to play Fabinho there full time as a fourth choice. If Joel Matip gets a long-term injury, we are again short on that. We just have two regular centre backs and a youngster in Piliku Metio. I don't know if he's going to play more, but I think it makes sense if we sign a fourth choice centre back. We've been linked with Ozan Kabak from Schalke. Schalke quoting a 30 million price, I guess, but I don't know if we'll pay. Personally, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to sign Kabak unless we probably offload players like Marco Grujic, Shaqiri, maybe Origi, Harry Wilson, of course, and Ryan Brewster. Yeah, I still think centre-back's a big priority because of what I've spoken of a few minutes back. So I'd still give it an 8.
Let me ask you this though, because there's been a bit of a buzz, hasn't there, over the last couple of days with the Diogo Jota deal. A bit of a buzz in my household at the price, but no, is the buzz down to the player himself or the fact that Liverpool caught you off guard with it? Because he didn't really get linked or something, and it's a bit of a transfer that is a bit, and I know Liverpool are quite efficient with their business, is that it's done. It's never it never really lingers on anymore. Yeah. They seem to get the business done quite quickly. Is the buzz down to the fact that you weren't expecting it, or the quality of the player?
I think it's down to both of that stuff, because Jota wasn't linked with. All of a sudden he was pulled out of the Wolves squad for the Carabao Cup match, and that's when actually the rumors started flowing in. And the next day you see he's agreed the deal, and I still think the price is a little high. Obviously the premium for English clubs, but another factor, I think it's both the, what do you call it? It's both the surprise or the suddenness, also the quality of the player, because I think a lot of fans were expecting Ismail Assar, but when they heard Diogo Jota, it's again a different, I think Jota is better than Sarr. Maybe someday Sarr might become a better player, but at the moment, Jota is definitely a better player. So James Pierce actually came out with this article again. He said that Sarr was on the scout or on the transfer list. Jota was as well, and also Jonathan David, who signed for Lille. Yeah. So these three players were on the list, and we ended up signing Diogo Jota. So I think it's both down to the quality as well as the suddenness or the surprise or the way how the move came about. Yeah. So I would definitely told. Given my take on the Liverpool transfers, what do you think, Chris? As a neutral and also as a rival fan, what's your take on, or how's the Everton fans treating this?
You can't, as much as I want to joke about it, the fact that you spent 45 million on a player that was sitting on Wolves' bench most of last season. I'm joking. No, you can't. I think it's a clever signing. I think that's the best way of describing it. I think it's a very clever signing. I've mentioned this on previous podcasts when I've been speaking to yourself. Liverpool are in a bit of a tricky situation this summer regarding their transfer business, because there's not many players that can come in and improve the first 11. Plus, you're in that predicament that Man United always used to find themselves in under Alex Ferguson, is you're buying, essentially, you're asking players to come in to be a squad player. Now, if you want to buy an up and coming young player who wants to come in and wants to, do you know what I mean? You're convincing them to come in, especially in the forward line, which I'm assuming that this would have been an issue with Timo Werner and why you might have opted for Chelsea. You're asking that type of player to come in and essentially be a squad player. Now, so Liverpool were in a bit of a tricky position going into the summer, because as the saying goes, you should always look to buy your players and improve your squad when you're on top. But how do you do that? Because you're asking players to come in. So I've listened to yourself, or listened to Liverpool fans, and similar in that position to what you find yourself in now with your centre half. You want a centre half who's going to come in and be of a certain quality to maintain the quality that you've got in the squad, but you're also asking the centre half to come in and play backup.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How do you do that without? You're not going to get say, a player who's about to hit the prime of his career, who is on the verge of becoming that next good player. You're not going to be able to convince him to come in and play second fiddle to Gomez and Van Dijk. So it's a tricky position for Liverpool to be in. So given that, I think the business that you've done is very good. Now, the Thiago one, I mean, first of all, Thiago's a footballer. Like you said, he is world class. He's been one of the best midfielders in Europe for the last 5 years, in world football for the last 5 years. He has had his injury problems, but he seems to have, I mean, let's face it, the ACL injuries these days are nowhere near as bad as what they were 20 years ago. You can have those type of injuries and get over them now due to sports science. Obviously, as detrimental as what they are at the time, people can get over them. So let's not beat around the bush regarding him. He is, as a footballer, he's world class. He comes in, he gives you that something different as well. I don't see him playing as the pivot. People are saying, who'd you play, Fabinho or Thiago? And I see him playing left or right of a three. Yeah. And he gives you something that you haven't got. And I've quoted this before. Anyone who thinks that Liverpool don't need him should watch the Atletico Madrid game at Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not because you've got beat or you went out, but because the amount of focus the amount of attacks that you actually had to do down the wing, and the amount of crosses that you were putting in. And the reason you were doing that is because Atletico Madrid were forcing you out there because they were happy for you to cross the ball, because that suits their defence strength. And whenever Liverpool got the ball in the centre midfield, I can't remember who was started that night, whether it was Henderson or whether it was
Henderson.
Atletico Madrid didn't have to pull out of their position to press him, because they were happy for him to have the ball, because he's not as creative and his passing weren't going to break the lines. He knew that once he got the ball in that half space on the right hand side, he was only going to pass out to Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he was going to cross the ball.
Yeah.
So it was all very predictable and suited Atletico Madrid. Now, if you put Thiago in that position in a team like Atletico Madrid, who are going to try and sit back and defend the lead, they will have to press him. And the reason they will have to press him is that he might not create as much in terms of getting the final assist, but he will create from a build-up play point of view, and he will break a team shape because he's that more dangerous with his passing. He will break the lines. So he gives Liverpool something that they haven't got. So not only is a world-class footballer, he comes in and he improves a team like Liverpool who've hit phenomenal heights, and he gives them something that they've got. So the transfer is an exceptional transfer. I mean, the finance of the deal, 29 years of old, he's only had 12 months left on his contract. So I think the financial side of things is probably getting overplayed slightly. I don't think really, I know people are saying that you got him for 20 million plus, I think it is a 5 million in add-ons, so it's a potential 25 million overall. I mean, let's not forget, he's told Bayern Munich that he doesn't want to stay there, and he was going to leave on a free. So I think the finance side of it's getting slightly overhyped. But take that away from it, you've got a world-class footballer that comes in and gives you something different, which is quite odd when you've hit the height Liverpool had. And it also allows you to change the formation. So you can play as part of the two in a 4-2-3-1, which we've seen Klopp experimenting with in the Community Shield and various other games. You can play right or left of a 4-3-3 as well. It gives you that little bit more variation now. In regards to Diogo Jota, I mean, again, you've got to take the finance out of it. Again, don't get me wrong. Liverpool have played into Wolves' hands. Wolves have got it's a transfer that suits all parties. It's because Wolves have got done very well to get that amount of money. But you mentioned it before, that there's always a premium when you're buying from a Premiership club. I mean, I think the negotiation will start at 30 million now instead of 0. It must just be. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Everton got slammed for it when they bought Richarlison from Watford. For I think that goes to 45 million eventually after the add-ons. But I was saying to people at the time, well, what? That's the cost you've got to pay to buy from another Premiership club these days. So again, you've got to take the finance out of it. And he is slightly inconsistent if you base him on performances over the course of a season at Wolves. But again, he's a good player. He's a very good player. He's happy to be a squad player, and he can play at Wolves. He's shown that he can play as part of a 2 up front when they played 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, whichever way you want to look at it. And he played wide He played wide left when he played 3-4-3 or 4-3-3. So this is a guy who offers a lot because of that. Just because of that, what I've just said there. Again, there's not many players that can adjust like that.
Yeah.
In modern football, so it's a very good signing. Whether Klopp is the man to get that, and the coaching staff are that man to get that consistency from him, who knows? They got that with Salah. Salah weren't that consistent before he got to Liverpool, and then he took him to another height.
Yeah, and Jota is actually kind of, I saw this tweet from Simon Brendish of the Anfield Index, who's also a sports scientist. So he'd actually put Sadio Mane's stats at Southampton and Diogo Jota's stats at Wolves, and they actually look like a statistical clone, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I seen that. I read that myself. I found that very, very interesting. And I think, that's essentially why Liverpool have gone out and bought them and paid the money that they've got, because that's when you're trying to. I'm not a Liverpool fan, so I don't know. But I would, as a football fan, looking at Liverpool's squad, you sort of look at it and you think, like, their front three has hit that level. How do you replace them now without selling one of them? Now, so Liverpool are in that predicament that I mentioned before. You're asking a player to come in and essentially play back up to them. So those stats that you've got there, and Mane, for me, I didn't think there was another player like him. For me, he's been that good in the last year. I think he's actually gone under the radar because he doesn't seem to get the plaudits that Salah gets. Maybe, I don't know why, but for me as a footballer, he's definitely in the top 3 players in the Premier League. He's so good. I've seen him live. His movements I've had the privilege of seeing him live, even though it wasn't a privilege on a night, because obviously I'm an Everton fan, so I have to watch him in the derby. But it's not actually a privilege for the 90 minutes, but his movements is really second to none. But now you've got that backup now. You've got that backup and Diogo Jota that comes in. The only thing I would say for Liverpool, and maybe going forward, is I wouldn't expect Diogo Jota to have the impact that Mane has had at Anfield, just because when you bought Mane, he came into the team straight away. He was coming in as a first 11 player. So he was starting. Here's where I don't think Diogo Jota will come in as that player. So I don't expect him to have the impact that Mane had, or maybe he might not even hit the heights that Mane had. So those that data that people have put on there, I would probably don't expect them to have the impact overall that Mane's had. But again, his finishing ability. I would ask anyone to watch the Wolves game last year against Everton after the lockdown and the restart, and they beat us 3-0 at Molineux. And he hits a first time. I think it was first time. I think it was Wolves' second goal. It might have even been a third when Ruben Neves switched the play. It was a diagonal ball, but in behind Everton's defence. And he caught Pickford out of the front post because he hit it first time. When first time on a volley, I think it did bounce, and he hit it with his left foot. And it was a fantastic finish. As much as maybe if Everton fans probably used it as a stick to beat Pickford with on a day, he would have caught most goalkeepers out with that. It was actually a really phenomenal finish. But his movement as well was brilliant. And then his first time hit, I think it was first time. Try my best to forget the game, if I'm honest, but. Yeah, exceptional finish on a day, and I think he'll be a really good buy. But over time, that would be my sort of thing for Jota.
Yeah.
It will be over time, not straight away.
Yeah, fair. That's fair enough. That's fair. So that's it with this episode of the Merseyside Transfer Podcast. So thank you so much to all our listeners as well who's tuned into this show. This is a bonus episode which myself and Chris thought of doing this week because we both support the Merseyside clubs and we have some friendly banters and stuff, and both of our teams have had a really good transfer window, which is pretty rare. So that's it.
Well,
that's it.
So far, I don't know. There's still time left, isn't there? There's still.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to make any more moves. I think Everton might sneak a lone centre half in, given the injuries, but I don't expect any more business. I know Zaha's name's getting banded about a bit, but it'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do. Can I just ask one more question to you, Rithwik, regarding Diogo Jota?
Yeah.
Do you actually think he will play as sort of an understudy to Mane, or do you think Liverpool might be sneaky with this and use him as an understudy to Firmino?
That's a tricky question, and that's a really good question as well. But I think we already have Minamino who's gonna push Firmino up there. And the fact with Jota is, I think he fits all three roles in the front three: the left, center, and the right. So again, it depends. I think it depends on availability as well, whether he if he is to play up top instead of Firmino. But I think I mean the most likeliest thing is Jota playing left wing for Mane. And I saw his heat map as well, and he actually gets back a lot. He plays more deeper as well at times. He presses in deeper areas as well. So when you compare that to Sadio Mane's heat map at Liverpool, I think Jota's is much more deeper at times, which is also again another promising sign. So I think he's definitely gonna play left wing mostly, but you never know because he's a player who can play anywhere across the front three. So it's a tricky question to answer at this moment, but I personally think it's gonna be mostly left wing.
Yeah, the only reason I asked is because, like I said, many people are looking at the statistical comparison to Mane, but I just think because he played as a 2 and his movement is good, I think Liverpool might catch people off guard and he might play centrally a lot more than what people expect. Especially if Liverpool, especially when say he's coming off the bench and it's 0-0 or anything like that. I think I don't think you'll see him coming on for Mane. I think you'll see him coming on for Firmino.
Yeah, that's very likely, and I think even if that happens, there is also a chance of Mane going on to the right side, Salah playing up top, and Jota playing on the left. That there is that aspect as well. So, that's a fair pick as well. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you once again, Chris, for joining in. So
you're very welcome, mate. Thank you for co-hosting as always.
So until
I was going to say, and hopefully by the time the derby comes around next month, you're actually getting within touching distance in the league table with us.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you once again to all the listeners. So until the next episode, bye bye. Take care.